ladies and gentlemen, it is the SHOPO Hour with brothers Nick, Steve, and Mark. And gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Rick.
Morning.
Good to hear from you. Good to see you. All of that and more. Tell you what, let's just get caught up a little bit. Brother Nick, how was your week? How's everything going for you?
Oh, good. Thanks. Thanks for having us back. Nick Schlepak, Honolulu Chapter Chair for SHOPO, and also a police officer in the Honolulu Police Department.
Wonderful. Brother Steve.
Oh, Rick, always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners, kicking off another week.
Yes, it is. Brother Mark Critchfield.
Morning. Happy Monday. Nick, Steve, Rick.
Morning, sir.
Another day.
Here we are. I'm calling it Law Enforcement Week because each day we're going to focus on law enforcement in our community. And blessings to HPD, because to be a dominant role in bringing that information to folks. So I'll just start there. We'll get into some news and some other tidbits. Law enforcement in Hawaii. I'm going to just leave it there. I'd like to get your thoughts and your reaction to our law enforcement men and women that are serving in relation to our community. Steve, you want to lead us off?
Sure, I can. So the first thing that comes to mind, Rick, when you say that statement like that is what makes law enforcement special here in Hawaii and the different counties is that the officers work and serve in the communities that they live. A lot of times on the mainland, officers will work for different agencies, but it won't be in the city where they actually live and reside and where they have their roots. Right. Doesn't mean they don't do a good job. It just means that the officers here that provide service to the community and put on the uniform every day have a vested interest in doing their job at the highest levels, because they realize that when they get ready for their shift, whether that's in the patrol car, handling investigations, teaching new recruits, they have a vested interest into doing their best because they live in that community, their families are there, and that's where I feel it's very special and very unique.
Gotcha. Nick?
Absolutely, yeah. This is one of the places where, you could be doing your job as a law enforcement officer in the morning, and then the next thing you know, you're shopping in the same store that you were protecting just a little while earlier. You see the same people in the neighborhood, so on and so forth. So it's definitely one of those places where I think law enforcement officers tend to take things a lot more personally, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's more like a personal investment in the situation. That's probably also one of the reasons why it stings so badly when we lose our local officers to outside law enforcement agencies, because we have such a unique atmosphere here when it comes to people from the island actually working on the island.
Interesting. Brother Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's unique. It's a small island. Again, they patrol, they work where they live. So the cases will affect them probably more than other jurisdictions, but more so, it's a battle every day for these guys. First of all, they're out there protecting their own neighborhood, and then what happens afterwards, right? They got to deal with the prosecutors, they got to deal with the judges, they got to deal with the politicians. It's a battle. It's a battle.
So we have 8 districts. Some are hoping for a 9th, and we can chat about that a little bit later. But do officers normally remain within their districts, or is there carryover into other locales? How is that prioritized as far as service?
So the department has no regulation about you having to live in the same district that you work in. You could live out in the Waianae area, and you could work out in Kailua Kaneohe or something like that. So as far as restrictions go, there's nothing like that.
It's interesting because what you said, it never dawned on me as an island community. I'm thinking of Chicago, where, and by the way, I'm saddened that Mayor Lightfoot did not get
It's about time, right, Rick? It's about time. Chicago PD, they do have a residency requirement, but it seems like all the first responders, cops, and fire, they live over there on the west side. They're kind of like grouped in their own little first responder land.
Yeah. But I love the fact, the uniqueness of here at home and the way that we take care. There was a story that appeared that SHOPO has, in fact, endorsed the 312 schedule. Can you share, Brother Steve, as VP of SHOPO, exactly what that means?
Sure. So we wanted to kind of get a pulse of our... Now, remember, at SHOPO, we represent 4 different county police departments. This specifically, 312, is currently addressing the Honolulu membership. Nick and his board wanted to roll out a survey to get opinions of our officers within Honolulu PD to give us feedback on what they thought would work for them, what might not work for them, if we decided to support the Honolulu Police Department going to a different work schedule. For the last 17 years, we've been working with a supplemental agreement. We've had a 5-9. Our contract from the city is generally a 5-8 rotating, where you would come to work 5 days, you get 2 days off. And then, Nick, how many months was it they had to rotate, Mark? You remember how often they had to rotate back?
Every 6 and 7 weeks.
So our initial contract with the city is a 5-8 rotating. So anything that we want to do with the administration here in Honolulu has to be agreed upon mutually by the administration and the police union. But anyway, we rolled out what we thought was a fabulous survey. Nick and his board put together questions. We released it. We went on a massive drive to try to get participation from our membership. And we put it out. We allowed several weeks for responses to come in. Nick and his team analyzed those responses at the state level. We also were privy to that. And then Nick and his board got together, and I'll let Nick expound on that more. They made a decision moving forward as a collective that they felt that this schedule, that, as you know, Chief Joe publicly said it, he wanted to take wanted to take his department that way, that they feel it would be a benefit to the members. Specifically with that schedule. And I'll turn it over to Nick if he wants to go in a little bit further detail.
Yes,
Please.
I can. Yeah, so as you folks know, we've been doing a pilot program in Patrol Districts 4 and 5 for almost 12 months now, since last year. And the Honolulu Police Department last year, to its credit, was open to the idea of us doing something different. Has the schedule been done before? Yes, it has, many years ago. But for several years, we've been working with a 5-9. We took the survey results to heart. We looked at a lot of different angles. It was a difficult decision to make because we had a lot of things to think about. And we had membership's interest as well as the department and the public. But at the end of the day, we decided that this is the step that we're going to make. After so many years of doing a 5-9, you're walking out of a comfort zone. But I think this is going to be a new step in a direction that I'm hoping the membership will enjoy. Particularly with the extra time off, and we're hoping to see increases in staffing levels in all 8 districts.
Is there? Oh, go ahead.
No,
Steve.
Rick, I was just going to say, and this is key for your listeners that might be like, well, why do we want to know about the police work schedule? When we came up with this as it was a collaborative effort this time last year, we crunched some numbers and we found that without incurring any additional overtime expenses, that the staffing, depending on the size of the watch, you could increase staffing between 10, 15, sometimes even 20%, and more officers reporting to work in and out a patrol capacity. Remember, the 312 is going to be for our men and women that wear the uniform that work patrol. Okay, so you see them driving around in the cars, and that's what they're doing. The specialized units, the investigative unit, the academy, everything else is still going to stay status quo. This is just going to be the 312. But to Nick's point, we felt that it would be better for the community because the department would be able to fill beats. And if you have more officers on the road, that's going to be better service to the community. And then we also felt then, how would it benefit our members? And as Nick stated, more time with family, more downtime, more time to do personal things, because you'd have 3 days on, 4 days off for 2 weeks. Then the third week would be a give back. You'd work 4 days with 3 days off. And again, we're going to navigate that. But for the community wanting to know why we decided to do this, we thought it would be a better quality of life for our members. And on the flip side, it would provide more patrolmen out in the communities working, filling the beats.
So this would be a mandatory change. Is there any opportunity for folks that may want the option of continuing at 5-9?
For patrol, no, this would be a blanket across the board schedule. However, people do have the option of rotating out of patrol to a non-patrol assignment where there may be shift work or the hours may be different. It could be an 8-hour day for 5 days a week with 2 days off. It could be at nighttime. It could be at the daytime. There are several other options that one can explore if this schedule doesn't particularly work out for them.
And Rick, just for the listeners, as you were indicated earlier, Honolulu PD has 8 patrol districts. This 312 schedule would affect all 8 patrol districts. Wouldn't just affect, let's say, urban Honolulu and the west side could do what they want. The 12-hour shifts and when they would start, that's up for discussion. I think possibly Chief Joe may give the commanders a little bit of flexibility as to when they want to do the 12-12 shift. But all of the 8 patrol districts would switch over to the 312.
Mark, what do you make of this?
Well, you're not going to make. There's be some guys that don't like it, but I worked it prior. I mean, it's good. Those 4 days off are nice, but I'm going to tell you, I was tired though. 12 hours, you're tired. But like I said, you're not going to make everybody happy. If you don't like it, you go to another. Like Nick said, you could transfer out. There's a 5A schedule in other places of the department. You could go specialized divisions. But God knows these guys need staffing out there. They're working short every day. So if this is going to help the staffing, go for it. And the rumbling out there now too is what's the hours going to be? Because that's, like Steve said, it's up in the air right now. So the guys are wondering what the hours are going to be. So
because it could, could literally be at 12 noon to 12 midnight or
probably make it
variations,
two shifts.
right?
Let's just say hypothetically 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 a.m., 9. There's a couple different variations. One of the things I do want to share, Nick and his team, when they put together the survey, they specifically focused on officers that were working in the pilot program as well. That was districts 4 and 5, right? And to Mark's question, do you feel tired? Well, we actually found that the percentages were almost identical in terms of, do you feel fatigued working the 312? Do you feel fatigued working the 5-9? The percentages were extremely close. And officers that work harder are going to feel tired. Yeah. But it wasn't anything, anything too much of a discrepancy between if officers that are on the 312 in those districts that were working the 5-9, we didn't see anything specifically related to fatigue. But what was exciting for us, and I think it was instrumental in Nick's board making this decision, is that over 2 to 1 in the membership that participated in those districts, I think it was 2.5 to 1, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, felt that the 312 was a better schedule than the 5-9. So his team, Nick and his board, really did their due diligence before they got behind this and said, you know what, this is going to work for the membership. Yeah.
So that is, Nick, one of the critiques, perhaps, of the 312 schedule for non-department people listening, general public. You guys are tasked with what we've described and have shared, the reality of the challenging responsibilities of HPD. And amongst them, of course, having to react to certain elements that can be very dangerous, if you will. When fatigue sets in, judgment can be compromised in certain degrees, depending on the individual. How do you reply to those who may have that position?
One of the things that we're hoping is that if we see the increase in staffing in these districts as a result of the change in shift work, the workload will hopefully be more effectively distributed amongst the increase in personnel.
Mm-hmm. If there is a situation where you have, for whatever reason, whatever it could be, that you have a great deal of personnel that are unable to work their shift, as much as there is coverage when they're there, does that mean less coverage if they're not there?
Well, I know watch commanders have the responsibility of making sure that the men and women under their leadership are safe. And then we have obviously a large pool of officers that would have no problem coming in on overtime, meaning that and every district has a certain staffing percentage that they, let's say a minimum that they're to operate with. And usually there's enough officers within a district from other watches and whatnot, or people that are off that specific day that would come in and fill that gap. And Rick, I just wanted to bring something up here. I would ask everybody to look at this a little bit differently. When you talk about being fatigued on a 312 schedule, that has to do, let's say, with conditioning, whether it's physical or mental. I would put an argument up that says if you have 4 days off, that it'll give our members the opportunity to make healthier lifestyle choices, whether that's in the food they're eating to fuel the machine, whether that's in their fitness program, whether that's in their mental wellness with family and friends, whatever they need to do to decompress. I would say that being able to do the rigors of the profession is actually all in the preparation of what our members do when they're actually not at work, whether that's keeping themselves in physical shape appropriately, keeping tabs on their family life. And we felt that this schedule is going to allow them to do that. So to your point, fatigue is absolutely going to set in. That's just how our bodies work. But I would say that this gives our membership the abilities to strategically strengthen themselves mentally and physically. So when they are doing their shift, they're going to be able to do it at a high level and perform.
Is this consecutive days? Is it 3 consecutive, or can that be broken up?
So, to be perfectly honest with you, the schedule is very malleable from my point of view. Currently, we do 3 on, 4 off in districts 4 and 5. But one of the things we'd like to discuss with the Honolulu Police Department is whether or not breaking up that cycle is an option within a 1-month period.
Mm-hmm. Understand. And Mark?
Just to clarify, so when I said I was tired, not at work, because let's face it, guys now, they're so short out there, they're doing 12-hour shifts because they're working overtime, doing these cases. So they're actually doing it already. But I was beat when I got home. At work, I was fine. But when I got home, I went right to sleep because I had to get up the next morning, right?
Right.
So that's what I want to clarify as far as being tired and,
Right.
That's
good to know. And to hear the firsthand experiences is so important, and that's why I'm delighted that you're here to talk about this.
And Rick, not only that, but on Maui County, they're going to be doing a pilot program where the membership there is going to be working a 312.
Yeah.
So this work schedule of the 312 is definitely something that seems to be appealing not only to administration but also our members.
We're already at 7:25 in the morning. Wow. I got to get caught up. We got primetime traffic, and then a couple of messages. And when we return, we'll do bottom of the hour news and a whole lot more. It is the SHOPO Hour. It certainly is. A few minutes before the bottom of the hour break, and the fellas are in studio. Nick, Steve, and Mark. Brother Bobby, hope you're doing well. Before we do take the hard break at 7:30, connecting with HPD, especially SHOPO. What's the best way to do it? How so?
Sure. Rick, your listeners could please come visit us on our platform at shopohawaii.org. We redid the site. It's going to be informative. Then from this particular platform on the website, you could reach us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
We're going to discuss a couple of things when we come back. One of them is there's been a spate of motorcycle accidents, and maybe we can counsel our listeners on both sides as drivers, riders, and in automobiles. There are 2 bills that I discussed with Jillian previous to appearing together. 2 bills which would legalize jaywalking, and another, House Bill 319, for bicycles, motorcycles, mopeds, etc., to go through red lights between certain times of the night. And those are on the agenda. I'd like to get your take on those and also traffic at large and more of that to come. Right after we check in with bottom of the hour news, it is the SHOPO Hour. Stand by. There's more. 7:29.
KHVH traffic.
Once again, we're back, and delightfully so. 521-8383. If you would like to jump in and have a conversation with Nick and Steve and Mark, it is the SHOPO Hour, and we continue on at 7:34. I cited before the break that there has been an unfortunate spate of motorcycle accidents and unfortunately even fatalities. I wanted to find out your perspective, gentlemen, why, and what we as drivers need to be aware of with motorcycles and other on the road, and what motorcycle drivers and riders should have as top of mind to help reduce these cases. I'm going to start with Nick, if you don't mind.
Sure. So if memory serves, since February 18th on this island, we've had 3 traffic fatalities involving either mopeds or motorcycles. 1 involving mopeds and then 2 involving motorcycles. If you're going to ride out there, please be careful. Don't hot dog. If you're in a group, don't fool around. Don't go out there and race on the weekends or anything like that. Please be cognizant of your speed and be aware of the situation around you. And for those of you who are driving cars or trucks out there on the road, you got to watch out for everybody else as well, including the motorcycles and the mopeds. So take time, take extra caution. The weather's been really bad lately. So if the weather is bad, you need to be even more aware of what's going on around you. But yes, there have been a few fatalities within the last few weeks involving motorcycles or mopeds.
So my routine is when pulling into an intersection is look right, look left, look right, and look left again. Because these, I mean, no offense, because I love bikes. I do. But, man, they creep up on you and just in a moment's notice. They can be right on top of you. But the one thing I will say, bicyclists, you guys better behave yourselves. Because I see so many bicyclists. I saw one yesterday while I was driving against traffic on the right side of the lane against flowing traffic. Or when cars are waiting at a light, they'll just ride right through a little space and get in front of traffic at the light when it changes. I mean, it's a lot of times we get criticized as automobile drivers that we're insensitive or we're not aware. Dude, you boys and girls, you got to behave out there, man, because you're putting yourselves at risk. You're up against a $4,000 piece of moving metal. You got to be cool.
Yeah. Rick, about the motorcycle point, that hits close to home for me. I'm a motorcycle enthusiast. I ride bikes. I rode motorcycles for the department as a motorcycle officer. I ride recreationally. The biggest thing is for motorcycle riders, you have to ride within your abilities. Ride within your abilities. Know the kind of training you have, know the kind of rider you are, and know the capability of the bike that you're riding. Second point is whenever you bring adult beverages into the mix, you wouldn't think, but just a couple adult beverages in a motorcycle could lead to impaired reaction time. Also, too, you talk about the islands here in the different counties. You think to yourself, how many people do we have at any given time in rental cars that not only might not be used to driving on paved roads, but have an international driver's license, don't know where they're going, maybe aren't proficient drivers to begin with? Would it be fair to say that 3 out of 10 cars are being driven by people that don't know where the hell they're going and might not be the best drivers anyway? So if you are a motorcyclist in any one of our counties, you have to ride defensively. You have to make sure that you are physically ready to do that. Head on a swivel, to your point. Know the capabilities of yourself. Know the capabilities of your bike. Not only that, we have weather and roads to contend with. Not to add more to this conversation, but I don't think anybody listening, any of your listeners would say we have the best roads in most counties here. The roads are challenging. You have holes, you have potholes, you have loose gravel. Then you throw in weather, and whether that's debris on the road, that's rain coming down. It is absolutely a challenge to ride a motorcycle on a regular basis here. And I would say that a lot of people ride recreationally, and that's fantastic. But as a recreational rider, if you're not a professional rider, and you're a recreational rider, please ride within your abilities, ride defensively. And if you're a motorist and you're in a car, you cannot be on your phone. You can't be distracted because these motorcycles, at no fault of their own, could be in your blind spot. You're going to switch lanes. You'll sideswipe them. You're not paying attention. It really is an involvement. You know, everybody's got to get booked. But again, if you ride a motorcycle, you take on that responsibility.
Brother Mark?
Steve hit all the points. I was going to say, your head got to be on a swivel. You got to be ready to brake. These roads are not made for speed over here, and these roads are terrible.
I know. I find myself I have not a little car, but you know, I got a 2-seater, and when I'm driving down the road, I'm constantly just being aware of my surroundings, but potholes and metal plates and trying to avoid because I have a low threshold on my vehicle. I got to be careful with that stuff, and I find myself deviating out of my lane.
And Rick, if you're a motorcycle rider, bikes are bikes, and then bicycles or pedal bikes. Before we went to commercial, I'm sorry, just a segue.
Yeah.
When you talked about running red lights, was that somebody suggesting that it would be good legislation to let pedal bikes run red lights? What was that? Remember that?
I have the bill number. I just learned about it from Jillian in our segment, but it is House Bill 319. It is bicycles, motorcycles, mopeds.
To run red lights?
To run red lights.
Seriously?
Yes. Yes, in certain hours of the night when because of the weight doesn't trigger the lights to change. So between I don't have the exact time, but it's like 11 p.m. to midnight or 3 a.m. around in there. I'll get the details on it. But it is during a time when traffic is the lightest, but it would allow these vehicles to proceed.
I can't fathom the logic of that introduction, but here's my take. When you said that before break, I said to myself as a community, how about some legislation to address the other quote unquote things we have on the road right now? Our legislation, our OROs are predicated around pedal bicycles, right? And motor scooters or mopeds. What about all these other things that are popping up with these these motorized skateboards, the one-wheeled things, the scooter, the things? They're all over the road. I would like to see, if somebody wants to get into that, I think we need to address, I would say, all these other, I don't even know what to call them, scooters, one wheel. You know what I'm talking about, Mark? Those one-wheel skateboards, and then the scooters that are actually motorized that happen to go like 50 miles an hour.
Yeah. There's been lately, within the last couple of years, a huge proliferation in these electronic vehicles. They're one-wheeled, they're two-wheeled, they're skateboards. You even see nowadays golf carts out on the public roads, right? So there, to the best of my knowledge, there's no legislation reeling any of this stuff in. Essentially, they're considered pedestrians in the roadway, but at the same time, with regards to sale, distribution, or use, there are no restrictions on that, right? So there's no age restriction on it for use. There's no licensing required for use or anything like that. I'd also like to point out, when it comes to running red lights at the wee hours of the night when there's supposedly no traffic and it should be safer, all of the 3 collisions that I just mentioned regarding motorcycles or mopeds since February 18th happened between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m.
Well, there we go. And what's interesting, there is a Safe Street rally at the Capitol today. And I mentioned to Jillian, will there be a lawmaker presenting these 2 bills at the Safe Street rally, which would be nuts. Mark, thoughts?
No, it's crazy, because you know how people are going to expound on the law that's giving, right? So it's like, just because there's less traffic at night doesn't mean you're not going to have any accidents. And it's a bad bill, but I don't know where these legislators come up with these crazy ideas.
Interesting thing, it made crossover. It actually passed, and so it's going to be in the Senate, and the Senate will discuss and debate. I know our time is clicking by. It's already 7:43 in the morning. Unbelievable at the pace of play. I mentioned earlier that there had been an incident this past weekend on the windward side. I don't need to go into all the details. However, an attempted robbery. The victim took it upon himself to pursue the suspect. Suspect opened fire, thankfully not injuring the victim. Your thoughts about the general public confronting a violent situation or an intimidation or thwarting a robbery, etc. What should we do? What is the advice from our officers and our friends of what we should do as a general public?
To me, just be a good witness. I wouldn't get involved unless you have law enforcement experience like us, right? But you don't know the abilities of who you're dealing with. You don't know if they just smoked crack or ice and they're on some kind of crap that's going to make them, super strong, and you don't know the mentality of this person. So why put yourself at risk like that, right? If they're going to take your wallet, let them take your wallet or do whatever. But be a good witness. Get as much information as you can for when the police arrive, and just let them do their work.
Yeah. Gents?
A lot of time in self-defense, you try to limit the encounter with the bad guy, or you try to create distance from the bad guy. In this particular case, I guess the victim, I'm not armchair quarterbacking it, if he felt he had the ability and the skill set to defend himself, I would say okay. But I would say for most people within the general public, Rick, when it comes to something like that, most self-defense expert would say you need to create distance from the bad guy or the object that they may have and get out of that situation. And any personal property, that's replaceable. Whatever was taken from you, that's all replaceable. As long as you, your family, your loved ones are safe and you can get out of that situation in one piece and unharmed, that's a win. Again, I'm not critiquing what this person did. I'm simply saying I think for most people that don't have certain self-defense abilities per se would be better served leaving as quickly as possible and taking their loved ones with them. And whatever was taken in that robbery or in that theft, it's replaceable.
We're going to be back in a moment. We're already at 7:46 in the morning, and we're going to check in with all three of our friends in studio, with Nick and with Steve, and also with Mark as we get to the top of the hour. Just a reminder, we're talking all about UH Sports, the athletic director position, which is open. But we're going to get to the details of the impact, the importance, relevance, and necessity of hiring as excellent of an athletic director as you can. So Rich Miano and Mike Iosua are going to be with us next. 7:50 in the morning, the SHOPO Hour well underway. And many thanks to Nick, Steve, and Mark. I'd like to bring up, if you wouldn't mind, and get your thoughts about the Waianae police station. In the news, about a conversation about it. I've had the opportunity to visit a while back, but I'd love to if you could bring us up to speed of what's really taking place. And I'm going to start with Nick, if you don't mind, and that is the Waianae police station.
Sure. So there's a Waianae police station. It's very new. It's unfinished. It sits on the footprint of the old Waianae police station that's out there. There were some construction hiccups here or there, I understand, with the antenna, the radio antenna that was there originally, which caused some delays. But at the moment, despite being built and semi-furnished, it sits unused. There is only one officer there 24/7. That officer's responsibility is to open the door if someone knocks on it and says, please, I need help. It has the ability to hold arrestees for transport to other facilities, but they can't process anybody at the moment. You probably saw in the news that the second floor has been built, but it's completely unfurnished. The ETA to staff it by the department is unknown.
There is a piece of equipment, scan, that is not available. So for bookings, you have to go to couple A. So the functionality is minimal. I understand that it's about a 7-year process, that it's languished for a long period of time. And what could possibly be what needs to happen to help that district have a presence and even the creation perhaps of a District 9?
Rick, I think that's a fair question. I think the community out there, it's a fair question to ask. I can tell you from a union standpoint that some of the most talented officers, hardworking officers we have are out on the west side in District 8.
Absolutely.
You got to have a beach, Kapolei, Nanakuli. Those men and women are running up and down the coast to try to provide the best service they can, with a staffing situation where you just had such tremendous population overgrowth. Bottom line is, if you live on the west side, you got great cops out there working and protecting you. I think it's a fair question. You build a police station, you're thinking it's going to be filled with police and it's going to be in use. No sarcasm here, but I couldn't tell you, Rick. Mm-hmm. That's above my pay grade and not within the scope of what I do as a patrol sergeant or even as the union VP, but it is a fair question for the community to ask. We built a police station. Is it going to be used for what it was designed for? And again, the talk about District 9. I know that the current administration is having some discussion on that. Probably a question you can ask Chief Joe and his team when he's on the show. But again, fair question. I will tell you that our personnel on the west side that work hard, we would like to see a District 9 if possible. Absolutely. We would like to have the Waianae community have their own police station for several reasons. Okay? Now, how and when that can happen, I don't know. But if a station was built, you would assume that at some point it would it would step up to that role of being a full service police station that could service the community out there in Waianae.
But the interesting thing is that Mayor Rick has announced renovation to the Pearl City Station, and that's going to take an investment of up to $40 million. But we have a station that's built and ready to go with some, completion of furnishings, etc. And yet we're not able to invest to bring that up to speed before a new project is underway.
So the bottom line at Waianae,
Okay.
the city needs to fund it. It's all on the city. Every year, commanders put their wish list for their budget, right? It goes in a priority to our chiefs, and then they go to the city and say, this is what we need, okay? The city keeps shooting down the funding. Number one.
Now, funding is the city council, is he referring to?
I think it's
bills?
even prior, before it even goes to the city council.
Okay.
It's the city officials themselves. I don't know who the chiefs go to get this funding to approve our budget.
Yeah.
Right? Number one, you need to finish that station. All upstairs is all empty, nothing, because they need to complete the construction. It's not just furniture.
There's construction materials.
Yeah,
that are
I mean,
up there.
I think correct me if I'm wrong. I think we just got studded walls up there. I mean, I don't know, but I know the construction needs to be finished, and I know every year we put in for it. The city shoots it down. Number one. Number two, the city needs to fund the staffing. So it's all on the city. It's not on the police department. So the part that is complete over there, it's a nice station. They did a really good job with that, and the Waianae Coast, they need that station out there. Mm-hmm. So this is on the city. They got to move. They got to act on it.
Got it.
And Rick, I would commend Mayor if he feels that the Pearl City Police Station needs a facelift. I would agree with that. There's capital improvements that need to be made for safety and this kind of thing. I think it's actually two different issues, right? Getting the Waianae station up and running and doing a District 9 if necessary, that's important. But if someone's identifying that Pearl City needs a facelift, which I think most people agree, and again, another district that is nonstop with calls for service. Another district where the officers that work patrol there, the officers that work there, they have amazing camaraderie, amazing dedication to duty, tight-knit group. You work in Pearl City, you could stay there your entire career. In fact, a buddy of mine, he did 30 years in Pearl City, never left, and was there. So, again, a fabulous district, hardworking officers, and hey, if they... construction costs are not cheap with how much materials are costing these days, Rick. The price of lumber is outrageous. But if we need to renovate Pearl City Station, then let's do it effectively.
No, and there's no doubt that that's necessary. It's a $40 million project over 6 years.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be an immediate, but it is a dedication of resources, which is lacking, as Mark has described. So I'm just putting it out there. I mean, we're ready to go. We're ready to go. Minimum investment in comparison. I shudder when government begins another project without completing the first, or another project. It just drives me insane. We have about 3 minutes left or so. Brother Mark, I'm going to start with you to share some thoughts before we go today.
Real fast, I want to do a shout out. Officer J.D. Baba got married yesterday. He's an officer in District 1. Nice wedding on the North Shore. So congratulations to him and his wife, Kayla.
Wonderful. Wonderful shout out. Before we jump over to our fellas, can you put headphones on and try and get this quick call, and a quick one indeed, and then he's off the line. That's okay. Brother Steve, thoughts from you before we go?
Oh, sure. Please come visit us at SHOPOHawaii.org. Again, we are accepting donations for our officers that while they were on duty got seriously physically injured. Please come visit if you find it in your heart to donate at GoFundMe. Please come visit us again at SHOPOHawaii.org. And Rick, again, thanks for always hosting us and giving us the opportunity to connect with the community.
No, love it. Love every minute of it. Thank you for that. Brother Nick, final thoughts.
Yes, thank you. With regards to District 9, I just wanted to say to all the people out there on the Waianae Coast who went to City Council and have been very vocal about that, thank you. We really, really appreciate it. I think you'll find that all the officers in the Honolulu Police Department will completely agree that District 9 has to happen, and it should have happened a long time ago. And let's just ask the question, and let's be honest, no offense to any listeners out there from the department, who builds a station and then doesn't use it? A simple question, and it's a fair one, especially for the people out there.
Absolutely. I'll give mad shout out to Council Member Andrea Topola, because she has been a siren voice on this, and even more recently, really bringing this to the fore. So, gentlemen, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Rick. See you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you next week indeed.